This is the number calculator set A worksheet. So let's have a look at what this sheet should look like, and this is what you should have in front of you. Okay, if I just get the pen up so that we can work through this. Alright, make sure you have your calculator to hand. You do need a calculator. Hopefully you have one of the same types that you're going to use in the exam. Question 1, very common question. Use a calculator to work out the value of. A lot of you know how to do this. You need to make sure the square root is just above the line. So you need to use the fractions key, put in the square root of 3,540, and then put those two numbers at the bottom, times into them together. On your calculator screen, this is what it should look like. And when you press equals, that's the answer you're going to get. As the question said, write down all the figures on your calculator screen. Right, you need to make sure you do that. Yeah, write down all the figures. That's your answer, and that's what you should have. Give your answer to one significant figure. So one significant figure, count one number from the front, and then you're going to chop it off. If you're going to do that, if you're going to draw that line, do that in pencil. Okay, make sure you do that in pencil. Now, if you're going to, when you round this here, because the next number along is a 6, that's 5 or more, I'm going to turn the 1 into a 2. Don't be tempted to just write 2 as your answer. This 1 here, or this place value, is tens. So if that turns into 2, that's 2 tens, and 2 tens is 20. A lot of you are figuring this out, so make sure you remember it and you be careful to recognize that in an exam. Question 3. Very common, this type of question. It's a best value question. And what we want to do is to work out the cost of one plant, right? So if in tray A, 30 plants cost £6.50, so one plant will cost £6.50 divided by 30. Work that out. Write down more than 2 decimal places. Well, you don't need to write everything down, but I always just write down the first 3 decimal places. Do the same again with the other one. 8.95 divided by 40, that's the cost of one plant, and that's what I get. For tray C, 10.99 divided by 50, that's the cost of one plant, that's what I get. Because I've written them all down to 3 decimal places, I could actually compare this. I could compare this easily, and the examiners, right, are very cheeky in that if you rounded these numbers, they would all look like 0.22 if you rounded them to 2 decimal places. So by writing them to 3 decimal places, I can compare it easily, and I could see that A is going to be the cheapest. Think about that as 216, 223, 219. So 216 is the smallest, that's the best value, so tray A is the best value. Make sure you're really okay with that. It's very likely you'll get something of this type in the exam. Question 4, write down 0.2 with a dot above it as a fraction. You should know that that means 0.2 recurring, and because it's just one number recurring, remember the examples of dividing by 9 that we talked about, that's going to be 2 over 9 as a fraction, right? So if it was 0.5 recurring, it'll be 5 over 9. If it was 0.7 recurring, it'll be 7 over 9, and so on. So make sure you're familiar with that, you can remember it, and you can do it. Question 5, a bit of an extension of question 6. This time I'm dividing by dividing by 99. So that means 2 numbers are recurring. 46. I'm going to put a dot above the 4 and the 6, right? So 46 over 99 is 0.46464646. That's what's going to be recurring. So it's just 0.46 with a dot above each of them. You could put in 46 over 99 on your calculator and see that you get this. This type of question, very likely you get this and question 4 on a non-calculator paper as well. Question 6, you could get this on a non-calculator paper, right? There's not much calculator stuff that you could do here. So remember the method I taught you, that y equals 0.37 recurring. This time it's only the 7 that's recurring. And if I did write that number down, it'd look like this, 0.377, and so on. Okay, so let's just say y is equal to 0.3 recurring. If I times both sides by 10, I'll get 10y is equal to 3.7 recurring. What am I going to do with that? I'm going to times that by 10 again. So I actually pull another 7 out there. So it's 37.7 recurring. Now do think about that. Remember, 7 recurring means 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, so on. It's carried on forward. Now this is my chance to get rid of the 0.7 recurring. If I take away, I'm taking away the second line, the top line from the second line, so 100 take away 10 is 90, 37 take away 3 is 34, and 0.7 recurring take away 0.7 recurring, that just disappears. So that was the aim of this. Divide by 90. I could leave this like that unless they've asked you to write it in its simplest form, in which case you divide both of them by 2 and get 17 over 45. A lot of you are really good at this. Make sure you familiarize yourself with this, and you can do it. Do review this for both the calculator and the non-calculator paper. Question 7. This comes up more often on the non-calculator paper, but I've put it here so that you could see the method and you could appreciate the technique. At the start of the year, the gas meter reading was 8,569 units. At the end of the year, the gas meter reading was 9,872 units. Each unit of gas costs 44 pence. Work out the total cost of the gas used. So if I do units used, 9,872, take away 8,569, I work that out, I'm getting 1,303. That's how many units were used over the whole year. Each unit used costs 44 pence, so I need to times that by 44 pence. You can use a calculator to do this, but you should be able to do this without a calculator if it's on the non-calculator paper. It's really important that you recognize that this answer is in pence, and you've got to change it into pounds, and in pounds it's going to have 2 decimal places, so it's going to be 573.32 or 573 pounds 32 pence. Make sure you understand the method and the technique for doing this, and you can do it with or without a calculator. Question 8. Jim invests £2,500 for 3 years at a compound interest of 5%. So remember when we did this, right? We said when you're working in compound interest, you have your 100%, which is your original amount, and then you're going to add on 5% to that, so that's 105%. And so my multiplier is going to be 1.05. 1.05 is going to be to the power of 3 because it's 3 years. Right? I need to pop this into my calculator. When I work out my result, this is the technique that I use on the calculator and what you should see on the screen. When I work out my result, round it to 2 decimal places because it's money that you're dealing with, £2,894 and 6 pence. Keyword in question 9 is the word depreciation, and that means it's going down in value. And so unlike question 8 where you add it on to 100, in question 9 I'm going to take away my interest rate or my rate of depreciation from 100. So I'm going to do 100 take away 12%. What that leaves me with is 88%, and as a decimal my multiplier this time is going to be 0.88. So I'm going to use the same setup, 25,000 times 0.88 this time, and because it's 10 years it's going to be to the power of 10. Make sure you understand this and you can do it, and do look out for the word depreciation or depreciates. When you put this onto your calculator, right, same technique as before, make sure you're very careful with it. It's going to be £6,962.52. Okay, so do think about this question. Make sure you are able to do it. Question 10. In a store, a store has a 15% sale. The price of a jacket in the sale is £68. What is the normal price of the jacket? So originally the normal price is 100%. It's been reduced by 15%. So that means you've paid 85% of the original value. How much did this person pay? They paid £68. So I'm going to say 85% is £68. Let's work out what 1% is. You could use a calculator for this. 68 divided by 85, and that's going to give me 0.8. And usually you get a nice number like 0.8, a single decimal for this. Be careful. Make sure you do your calculation properly. Now that I've worked out 1%, I can actually work out the normal price, the 100%, the original value. So just do 0.8, which is 1%, times 100. That gives me £80 or 80 pounds. So that means that the normal price was £80. We have done a lot of these in class. Make sure you're familiar with it. You can do it. You're totally happy with this. Question 11. This is an exchange rate question. As soon as I do any exchange rate questions, I always draw the arrows in. So the forward arrow, if I'm going from pounds to dollars, I'm going to be timesing. If I'm going from dollars to pounds backwards, I'll be dividing. So I always write that before I even read the question. I write that around the exchange rate. A sandwich cost £7.20. What does this cost in dollars? So that means I'm going from pounds to dollars. So I'll be timesing. I'm going to do 720 times 160. That gives me an answer of 1152. Pretty straightforward. This is just to make sure you know what to do, you follow the right route, and you're able to do it properly. Very common on calculator papers. Make sure you can do it. Question 12. This is about upper and lower bounds. So x is 43 meters measured to the nearest meter. Y is 24 meters measured to the nearest meter. Find the maximum value of x minus y. So let's actually write down a couple of things. The lower bound for x is going to be half a meter less than 43, so 42.5. It's going to be half a meter above 43 for the upper bound, so 43.5. Similar thing with y. Y's lower bound is going to be 23.5 and y's upper bound is going to be 24.5. So remember, as I said, because it's measured to the nearest meter, it's going to be half a meter above, half a meter below. I want to work out the maximum value of x take away y. So the biggest value, the difference between these could be, is the upper bound of x take away the lower bound of y. Now you need to think about that. Think about the different combinations you could have and which one is going to give you the biggest value. So as I said just now, it's going to be the upper bound of x take away the lower bound of y. There's a good sort of cell and a lot of information in your revision booklet, the one I gave you all, about all of these topics. So check that out. Make sure you have a look. So the upper bound of x is 43.5, lower bound of y 23.5. Do the takeaway and your answer is 20. That's the maximum value the difference between those two could be. Going on to question 13. Bill's weight decreases from 64 to 60.8 kilograms. Calculate the percentage decrease. So we work out the decrease, 64 take away 60.8, divided by the original amount. So always find the original amount, and the original amount always goes at the bottom. Right? So the decrease divided by the original times by 100. This is what it should look like on your calculator when you enter it. Work it out, and as you can see there, the answer is going to be 5%. Going on to question 14. 36% of 4,500, so 36% is 36 over 100, times 4,500. Put that into your calculator. As you can see there, that's what it looks like, and your answer is going to be 1,620. Question 15. Express 60 as a percentage of 96. Write it as a fraction, 60 out of 96. Times it by 100. Again, stick this into your calculator, and you can see the answer you're going to generate is 62.5. Take your time with these. Go over this presentation again. Go through this video again. Make sure you know how to do and understand all the questions before you attempt set B, and have a go at set B next.